Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 9 November 2016. Morning in America, one might say. Congratulations to President-elect Donald J. Trump and the senators and representatives of the Republican Party who retained their majorities. Great work, guys and ladies. Now it's time to get down to the business of governing. Just remember, we have a constitution, and we expect you to defend and uphold it. But I digress right off the bat, don't I? It's time for a From the Sharpening Bench video on a relatively new release from our friends in Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. The Spyderco Sage 5. Fresh from the sharpening bench, belongs to one of my best customers who likes to remain anonymous on the channel, but I sharpened quite a few of his knives. He has great taste, and no exception is this one. The Sage 5 is, you guessed it, the fifth in a series of homage knives. The Sage series is a knife pattern from Spyderco, made with a variety of handle and lock configurations, each one of them a tip of the hat to a significant knife designer, genuinely designers of knife locking mechanisms. Let's run through them, shall we? The Sage 1, which featured the relatively similar scales to the 5. I'll get into that as we go on. It was a G10 carbon fiber laminate scaled knife with a leaf-shaped blade of S30V, which continues all the way to this fifth iteration. The locking mechanism was the Michael Walker liner lock. And then we had the Sage 2, same blade, but the handle fashioned of 6AL4V titanium with the Reeve integral lock or frame lock. After that, we had the Sage 3 in stunning blue G10 that was made to look like Zytel, believe it or not, and the locking mechanism was the Blackie Collins piston lock. Then came the Sage 4, a very interesting model in the Sage series. It was a tip of the cap to Al Mar and featured a titanium bolstered desert ironwood scale and a mid-lock backlock configuration, that an Al Mar style that carries through to today in the Bird series of knives, and by bird I mean eagle, hawk, falcon, osprey. The Sage 4 is interesting because it was not a big seller. It was a little heavy, and it was expensive. I think they were $180 to $190 retail street when they were new. Since they've been discontinued, you'll pay at least $100 more than that. So they didn't sell well when they were new, and now I think, due partially to the renaissance of traditional pocket knives, the Sage 4 has skyrocketed in value. More to come on that story soon. That brings us to the 5, the Sage 5. And I love this knife because they're so humble, the Glessers. They've made 4 Sages without any recognition given to the significance in design of Spyderco. But finally, the 5th one says, okay, let's feature a Spyderco lock. One of the strongest, most weight-efficient locks ever designed in a folding knife, and absolutely fun to play with. We're talking about the compression lock. The compression lock uses a locking leaf portion of a stainless steel liner, but it is not a spine-mounted liner lock, not at all. You'll notice in the blade tang we have this sort of radius cutout. There is a corresponding profile of the front of this liner, and The back side of that cutout is ramped. I think you can see that right here. So as that liner juts out into that opening, the farther over it goes, the farther up the ramp it comes, and it's sandwiched against the stop pin. So you have a very short in height, like a 1/4 inch, run of stainless steel liner that's maybe 50 or 60 thousandths thick, that is wedged between a hardened blade tang and a hardened stop pin. Doesn't weigh any more than a liner lock, but because of the shortness of that locking leaf top to bottom, much more strength. Just a superb design, and it's super fun to open and close. Not so much for a left-hander unless you have the clip mounted over on the left side. So let's kind of look at the rest of the knife. The Sage series is that kind of sweet size for a lot of us. 3-inch blade. All of them, I believe, so far have been CPM S30V. This one's no exception. Very broad blade, well over 1 inch. The thickness at the blade tang is about 117 thousandths with a lot of distal taper, bringing that leaf-shaped blade to a super skinny tip. We do have nested stainless steel liners in the 5, and a G10 and carbon fiber laminate scale, but it's different than in the Sage 1, and the Sage 1 had the same material as the Gale Bradley. And I think you can see the difference in reflectivity. So if I were going to characterize this first material, I would call its texture smooth but lumpy. So lots of peaks and valleys, but very smooth in texture. The Sage 5 still has some peak and valley texturing, but as you can see by its more matte finish, its tactile texture reminds me much more of the peel ply carbon fiber that was found in some sprint run knives, paramilitary 2s come to mind. So there's a little more tactility in its texture than this old CF G10 laminate. I kind of like it, especially because of how we sort of play with these knives. You know, we don't want our hands sliding around on them too much. Whoops. Into the leather. I like it a lot. So the blade's 3 inches long. We talked about its thickness. The handle about 4 3/16 inches in length. Thickness of the handle about 432 thousandths, I think. So well under ½ an inch. Just a super pocketable little knife. Shouldered standoffs, 2 of them, plus a lanyard hole, give it superb construction integrity. Interesting, I think, on this version of the compression lock, we've done away with the bushing, quote-unquote, pivot from the Para 2, the Manix 2, I think the Yojimbo, and what was it, the Super Leaf. Spyderco just never could get that right. They went back to the standard adjustable Sage pivot with the thicker washers. I don't know if we can see those. There you go. And it works great. Blade centering is easy to achieve. And because everything is so flat and so smooth, we can get good blade action without blade play just fine. It's a standard pivot. It's not exotic. It just works. You guys know if you are multiple paramilitary 2 owners, sometimes you get a good pivot, sometimes you don't. These, you can always make them the way you want them, which is a plus. Kind of sad that Spyderco could never get that right, but, you know, not everybody's Chris Reeve knives. Just had to throw it in, didn't you, Rob? Yes, I did. Okay, so let's look at some Sage-ish details. We have superb ergonomics in the 50/50 forward choil, great jimping both on the index finger side and the thumb side. We can move back if we need a little more reach. The pinky kind of searches for a place to hang out when we do that. For some guys, most guys, it's going to be a 4-finger knife even in that grip. The hammer grip, I think, works best in the forward choil. The draw cut grip coming back to the rearward position doesn't work nearly as well. That sort of sub-hilt peak pokes you in the palm. Not that you're going to use a short knife like this in a reverse grip much, but it works okay. The overhand pinch grip is very nice. Vertical draw cut grip, really, really nice. Just a great little knife. A superb, clean design, all Spyderco, and it works with all these different lock configurations of the Sage series, so very cool. You Spidey collectors, specifically you Sage collectors, are going to want to get one of these soon. Let's talk about the blade, shall we? It does taper quickly, both vertically and distally, from its 1/17,000th thickness, and the thickness behind the edge on the Sage is part of its mastery. Look at the consistent width of my 15 degrees per side secondary bevel. Super great slicer, tip to hilt, and it is one of the 90-degree plunge Spydercos, but look how clean the plunge is. It's very easy to get these sharp all the way to the base. There's almost a hint of an undercut or a sharpening choil from this direction. It just makes the Sages very, very easy to put a super precise edge on. And of course this one has just been sharpened, so it should be pretty neat and clean. It is. And Spyderco does a great job with their S30V. Sharpenable, holds an edge very well. Just a great little knife. Stay tuned, guys, for the next installment in the Sage series of videos on the TheApostleP channel, because the owner of this knife is a pretty good bird dog, and he has known for a long time that, you know, I'm sort of a traditional knife guy, and I appreciate wood in a knife handle, especially desert ironwood, and I've kind of developed a hankering for a Sage 4. Well, he found me one. It's on its way, and we'll look at it soon. And I believe that will complete the set of Sage videos on the TheApostleP channel. A little bit out of order, but that's okay. That's all for this one, my friends. And thank you, owner of Sage 5, for your hard work in finding me a 4. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember the word, and this here Sage 5 are sharp.